Yo, how the rich and powerful hide their money.
Part of the 1%. But ironically, even though you've arguably given back more to the world than
It's a
99% of
bit
the
loud.
population ever will, not including bankers, or else you wouldn't be a millionaire or billionaire, the world you enrich thinks that you should be punished the most. That you need to pay your fair share with their greedy progressive tax system, where the more value you create, the more taxes you have to pay to Uncle Sam. Now obviously, we don't want to pay all those hefty taxes. After all, why would we? Sure, there are legitimate things governments need money for, but for the most part, they're just gonna waste the majority of your hard-earned money anyways. Like how the government funded a near $600,000 study in 2011 in part to find out why chimps throw poop at each other. Yes, this really happened.
Oh
Your
my
money is
god.
always better off in your more nobler hands. And hey, if you're feeling charitable, you can always donate some of your wealth, like many do, directly to causes you believe in where you know exactly what your money is going towards. There
Yeah.
comes a time in every successful businessman's life where you're making so much money that you're better off learning how to rip off Uncle Sam in legitimate and not legitimate ways, theoretically of course, than actually growing your business more. And let's face it,
Hilarious.
the legitimate ways of avoiding taxes are pretty boring. So this is how the wealthy elite illegally not pay their fair share.
Tax evasion. Sorry.
This video was sponsored by Trends, which is probably the internet's most undiscovered knowledge house for entrepreneurs to find the next big business idea before it explodes. Trends is a part of The Hustle, the daily business and technology email newsletter read by over 1 million readers every morning. You get a first look at emerging markets, you can network with over 5,000 investors, startup CEOs, and aspiring entrepreneurs just like you, and you get private exclusive access to their invaluable content library, which I know you guys are gonna love reading. So stop what you're doing, pause the video, and get your first 2 weeks of Trends for just $1 by going to trends.co/Jake right now. The link is on
Definitely
the
use
screen
this
and in
link.
the video description below. Not
Yep.
paying taxes is a puzzle, a game of cat and mouse between you, the would-be taxpayer, and the greedy tax collectors, the government. What you have to understand is that the entire lifeblood of the government depends on tax dollars to survive and thrive. Governments are made up of very power-hungry people that would prefer to stay in power. So if you threaten their
Yeah.
rule by withholding their lifeblood, especially if you're a big fish, they will pull out all the guns to track you down and make sure you suffer. With prison time of up to 5 years for each count of tax evasion and fines up to $250,000 for individuals and $500,000 for corporations. The problem is that when you operate a business that is registered in the majority of modern countries like the US, you're legally required to have your name on the business in one way or another. Sure, a business can own another business. There are some states like Delaware that allow for anonymous companies, but if
A
everything
tax
is under
shelter?
US jurisdiction, the IRS will eventually be able to trace it back to you if they really wanted to. The key is getting your name off of the business, off of any paperwork, and to make sure that even if the US really wanted to with a warrant, let's say, they can never find out who actually owns the business. Because if they don't know who owns the business, well, they won't know who to charge for tax evasion. The problem is that, like we mentioned, if everything is under US jurisdiction, your name has to be on your business in one way or another. This is where shell companies come in. Shell companies are official companies that you can open and control but can't be traced back to you. This way, you can open up a shell company, move your money through it, and since your name isn't attached to the shell company, tax collectors won't be able to charge you. Shell companies can do anything.
That's
Open
pretty
up a
smart.
bank account, enter into complex business transactions, buy stuff, sell stuff, etc. The problem is that there is no way in hell countries like the US would allow for full-blown shell companies to be created, because why would they give you a bulletproof way to avoid paying up?
That is true.
Again, there are states like Delaware that allow for some anonymity, but it's not nearly as morally lenient as other places. Enter tax havens. Tax havens are usually small countries that don't really have much going for them, so they offer an extremely enticing business environment to attract foreign businesses to work with them and collect fees. There are exceptions, but when you look at the majority of tax havens around the world, this is usually the case. Take Nauru for example. Nauru is the third smallest country in the world at only 8 square miles northeast of Australia.
Never heard
Not
of it.
really much going for it economically, but in 2001, Nauru was internationally blacklisted because nations were worried it had become a center for money laundering. There are 4 main qualifiers that make a country a tax haven. Number 1, the country has little or no taxes. Number 2, they have very convenient financial products and incentives like shell companies for foreigners, but don't allow those very same financial products to be used within the country domestically. Take Malta for example, a tiny island off the coast of Sicily. Local Malta businesses have to pay a whopping 35% tax on all profits. Yet foreign corporations only have to pay as little as 5%.
Oh,
The
you
number 3
assholes.
thing that makes a country a tax haven is that the financial activities of the country lack transparency. And lastly, and most importantly, the country doesn't cooperate with other countries to give away their
No
clients'
snitching.
identities.
The
Preferably, not
golden
revealing
rule.
client information to authorities is required by law. Along with these four main points, little or no taxes, great financial products for foreigners, little or no transparency, and no cooperation with authorities, you also want to be absolutely sure your tax haven also has these things. The country needs to have a stable economy and political climate. Shifting power can lead to someone taking over that isn't so lenient with foreign businesses and might even seize your assets, like how this happened in Cuba with the mafia. And the economy has to be entrenched and dependent on their financial industry. The more a tax haven depends on this financial sector, the more the economy depends on dirty money, the less likely they'll ever be to change their tax haven reputation and will even actively encourage it. Although this isn't 100% guarantee that the country will never get stricter, as we'll cover later, it does help mitigate your risk. The best tax havens have locals that accept some level of corruption in order to keep the money flowing. Or in other words, tax havens need to have a symbiotic relationship with reluctant foreign taxpayers. The country gets to collect fees, employ their people, and in return, the foreign companies get a haven and protection from the state itself. There needs to be a strong incentive for them not to screw you over. Some of the biggest tax havens right now include the island of Jersey between France and the UK, the island of Bermuda in the Atlantic, the Cayman Islands, with the biggest one being the British Virgin Islands, where their economy holds more than 5,000 times the value of what an economy its size should hold. Once you have a tax haven in mind, it's time to start your shell company.
Okay.
Here's how opening up a shell company usually works. First, you're gonna choose a company in that tax haven that offers these financial services for sale. Although you can buy shell companies online, if you're a very well-off individual, you're probably gonna want to have your lawyer, accountant, or banker be the intermediary that deals with these companies to make sure everything is on the up and up. You can either buy a brand new shell company or they'll have existing ones that have a history of transactions already to make it look more legitimate, which costs extra. Once you purchase a shell company, now you have some decisions to make. Who is going to be the shareholder of the company? Even though your name can't be legally released in many tax havens, if you choose yourself as the shareholder, would you want to risk having your name on company papers?
No.
For the extra paranoid, some havens like the British Virgin Islands and Panama let companies offer bearer shares. These are nameless stock certificates where whoever physically possesses the pieces of paper owns the company. This means the firm issuing the stocks can't track the owner, and transferring ownership for a company is as simple as handing the pieces of paper to someone else. No paper trail.
Holy shit,
Once you
that's
determine
crazy.
the shareholder of the company, now it's time to choose the directors. Although tax havens don't require the owners of a company to be publicly listed, they do require directors of a company to. Not to worry though, because these financial firms offer what's known as nominee directors. Cheap employees of the financial firm that only control your company on paper, while you retain all your power via a secret power of attorney agreement. These pencil pushers sign documents for you, will hold meetings on paper, open up bank accounts for you, etc. And these financial firms will even have these directors pre-sign legal templates that can be used for future clients that come in. Some of these employees are directors on 100+ shell companies. Once you have directors, now it's time to open up a bank account under your new anonymous shell company. Offshore companies are worthless without a bank account because bank accounts are required to do any significant transaction. So this is a pretty important step.
Yeah.
I'd like to open a bank account.
Oh, bless you.
Bless
I'll
you.
be right back.
And now your new shell company is pretty much good to go. What's great is that since these financial firms are really just registering paperwork with the local government, they're in a very competitive, low-margin business, which means all your needs are pretty affordable, with some estimates putting it around $1,500 to $4,000 to open up a shell company in the British Virgin Islands. Depending
it's
on
not
how
too bad.
special your needs are, expect to pay a little more. Now it's time to put your tax haven to work. Remember, our goal is to not pay taxes. So the first step is to move our money offshore into our shell so it can't be taxed. There are an endless amount of options here. To get an idea, common methods include routing transactions to tax havens and skimming money off the top into your offshore accounts, creating fake invoices to pay your shell company for services that never happened, selling assets to your shell company at a big loss, and the list goes on. And as with any less than legal activity, the more creative you are with it, the more unexpected your strategy, the less likely you are to get caught. If you do what everyone else does, you're gonna get caught with everyone else. More on this
Be everyone
later.
else.
Then you have to eventually get that money back home, because after all, cash is useless offshore. One clever way to go about this is the fact that you don't have to own something to enjoy it. Maybe you bought a giant yacht with your shell company. You could lease it back to yourself at a very fair price. Another way tax bypassers got around this back in the day is via credit cards that these offshore banks offered, where you could anonymously use that credit card back home to draw down your offshore account balance, until they started cracking down on this since all the transactions are routed through US servers. And you have to do all of this while making sure that it doesn't look like you're secretly controlling your offshore company, and that your intent looks legitimate.
I'm just chilling.
Absolutely not.
That you really were paying for a service that this faraway company offered, and that yeah, this company also offered to lease me a yacht at a very reasonable price. If meddling authorities sniff any potential wrongdoing, these are the things they're gonna look at: how you entered the offshore world, how you got your money offshore, and how you got it back to shore. And boom, once you pick a tax haven, open up a shell company with a local financial firm, and get your operation going, you are now paying a glorious 0% tax on all the money you managed to get through your offshore shell companies. The bigger
Wow.
you scale up, the bigger portion of your profits can avoid going into Uncle Sam's coffers. But just because they might not be able to legally release your name, and just because tax evasion will never go away, doesn't mean tax havens are foolproof. Remember, we're messing with the lifeblood of world governments, and when you push someone into a corner, they're gonna play every trick in the book to defeat you. In 2015, the EU released a list of blacklisted tax havens. Blacklisted countries face sanctions, and they also had a gray list of countries that will go on the blacklist if they don't make tax reforms. In 2019, the Cayman Islands promised it would release the names of everyone who owns a company there by 2023. This was due to pressure from the
Ooh,
UK and the EU,
that's something to look
and it
forward to.
doesn't have to be governments that ruin the party either. In 2016, a whistleblower leaked documents that exposed more than 200,000 offshore companies and their owners' names
Oh
to
my God,
journalists
the
from
Panama
one firm called
Papers.
Mossack Fonseca in Panama. The names included the King of Saudi Arabia, former presidents of Argentina, Ukraine, Ecuador, former prime ministers of Iceland, Italy, Georgia, Iraq, Pakistan, Australia,
Shit,
and countless
dude.
of other smaller government officials from practically every major country, and
These
tons
snakes.
and tons of prominent celebrities and business people. So what I'm trying to say is you shouldn't evade taxes because it's bad. I mean, just stay safe, stay creative, don't penny pinch in this arena, and for the love of God, make sure you cover up your tracks.
For real?
Theoretically, of course. So in summary, this is all pretty simple. Step number 1, make
Make
money.
money.
Step number 2, use shell companies and tax havens to rip off Uncle Sam. Do I even have to say theoretically? But none of this convoluted stuff even matters if you don't get past step number 1, how to start making money in business. One of the most common questions we get on this channel. If you look at any industry, whether it be YouTubers or big tech companies, usually the most successful ones in that space that make the majority of the money are the ones that jumped on new trends early on. You don't have to be exactly first in an industry, but being the best early on when things aren't saturated makes life a whole lot easier. So if you want to get to the point where you're making an astronomical amount of money that's worth evading taxes for, what you need is the next big trend, the next big thing. This is where trends come in. One of the best little known knowledge hubs for entrepreneurs like you to find your next business idea, network, learn, and maybe even discover the next big thing. My favorite feature of trends are their signals, detailed yet easy.
I feel you.
Description below, and start
Definitely use
working
this,
towards making that tax evasion
this link.
worthy money while also supporting the brands that help make this channel possible.
Welcome to the Watch the End Club. As you can see, we're still not at the studio yet because I still haven't gotten around to it, so we are here. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you click the subscribe button and the like button and all that other stuff down below for more video essays just like this one every single week. You can follow me on Instagram for like memes and behind the scenes kind of stuff, kind of like this stuff. So if you want to join us over there, it's at jaketran.io. This video was based on the book Secrecy World, which was turned into the movie on Netflix called The Laundromat.
Oh,
Extremely
okay.
funny movie if you haven't seen it already. Highly
I gotta check it out.
recommend it, and the book if you want to learn more. So that's gonna wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. You've been awesome. I've been Jake. Stay dangerous, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
Definitely gonna have to check out the Laundromat movie. That seems like an awesome movie. I mean, I never knew about the whole shell companies, and like the one that got me interested too was the bear holder, I think, where like it was like you don't have to have like, as long as you have the papers, you're the owner of whatever company that is. That's pretty cool. That's a cool way to evade your taxes. But yeah.